There is something happening inside your skull right now, and you cannot feel it. It does not hurt. It does not announce itself. It simply strips away the protective coating around your brain cells one night at a time. A 34-year-old teacher in Manchester collapsed during a staff meeting last year. Her scans revealed white matter degradation consistent with someone 15 years older. Her doctors found no tumor, no stroke, no infection, just years of sleeping 5 hours a night. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how sleep deprivation physically dismantles your brain from the inside out. You will see the mechanism, you will see the scans, and you will never look at a late night the same way again. Before we begin, I need to be clear. This video is for educational purposes only. Individual results vary based on genetics and lifestyle. Always consult a qualified healthcare professional before making changes to your sleep habits or medical routine. I'm Vita. I have spent over 2 decades in clinical practice watching patients ignore the one thing that could save their brain. Not a supplement, not a drug, not a procedure, sleep. And the science coming out right now terrifies me. Most people think sleep deprivation makes you tired, maybe a little foggy, maybe a bit irritable. They treat it like a mild inconvenience, something you push through with coffee and willpower. That belief is dangerously wrong. In January 2026, a team of researchers published findings in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences that changed everything we thought we knew about what happens to your brain when you do not sleep enough. They did not just measure performance. They did not just track reaction times. They looked inside the brain at the cellular level, and what they found was structural damage, physical deterioration, your brain literally losing its insulation. The protective layer around every nerve fiber in your brain is called the myelin sheath. Think of it like the rubber coating around an electrical wire. Without it, signals slow down, they misfire, they degrade. Eventually, the wire itself starts to break apart. That research team analyzed MRI scans from 185 healthy volunteers and then ran controlled experiments on animal models deprived of sleep for 10 consecutive days. The results confirmed what they suspected but hoped was not true. The myelin sheath was thinner, not slightly thinner, measurably thinner. The nerve fibers themselves stayed the same size, but the protective coating around them had degraded. The brain was stripping itself bare, and here's the part that should stop you in your tracks. This was not damage from years of total sleep deprivation. This was damage from the kind of chronic partial sleep loss that most adults experience every single week without realizing it. 1 hour less per night, sustained over months. That is all it took to see white matter changes on a brain scan. 1 hour. The same hour you spend scrolling your phone before bed, the same hour you spend watching one more episode. Your body does not scream when your myelin starts thinning. It does not send you a warning notification. You just get a little slower, a little less sharp, a little more forgetful, and you blame it on age, on stress, on being busy, but it is not age, it is not stress. It is your brain physically deteriorating because you're not giving it the one thing it needs to maintain itself. And by the time you notice the symptoms, the damage has been accumulating for years. The researchers put it bluntly. Sleep deprivation poses a public health challenge in modern society. Manifestations include slowed reaction times and increased errors. Those are the visible symptoms. The invisible ones are far worse. Right now, there are millions of people walking around with brains that look 10 to 15 years older than their actual age. Not because of disease, not because of genetics, because of a choice they make every single night. And the most disturbing part is that many of these people believe they have adapted to less sleep. They say things like, "I function fine on 5 hours." That statement is not resilience. It is the definition of a brain too compromised to recognize its own decline. Studies on cognitive performance show that sleep-deprived individuals consistently overestimate their own abilities. The less you sleep, the worse your judgment becomes about how impaired you actually are. Your brain hides its own damage from you. Think about that for a moment. The organ responsible for telling you something is wrong is the same organ being damaged. It is the perfect silent killer. No pain, no symptoms you would rush to a doctor about, just a slow, quiet erosion. And it is not just about the brain. The downstream effects touch every system in your body: your heart, your metabolism, your immune response, your hormones. Every single one of them relies on sleep to reset and repair. A 2026 global sleep survey by ResMed found that more than half of respondents get a good night of sleep only 4 nights a week or fewer. Fewer than 1 in 3 people sleep well every night. We are living in a sleep deprivation epidemic, and yet most health conversations focus on diet and exercise. Those matter, but sleep is the foundation beneath both of them. Without adequate sleep, your body cannot process nutrients properly. It cannot recover from workouts. It cannot regulate hunger hormones. So if you have been telling yourself that you will sleep when you're dead, you should know that the science now shows you are racing toward that destination faster than you think, and your brain is leading the charge. Let me show you exactly what happens inside your brain when you consistently cut your sleep short. This is not theory, this is not speculation. This is the mechanism that researchers have now mapped at the cellular level. Every neuron in your brain has a long fiber called an axon. That axon carries electrical signals from one part of your brain to another. Wrapped around each axon is the myelin sheath. That sheath is built and maintained by cells called oligodendrocytes. The 2026 study identified oligodendrocytes as the key mediators of sleep deprivation damage. When you do not sleep enough, these cells cannot do their job. They cannot produce enough myelin to keep your nerve fibers properly insulated. Without sufficient myelin, your nerve conduction slows down. Signals that should travel at full speed start stuttering. The researchers measured this directly. Behavioral deficits followed: slower processing, more errors, impaired coordination. But here's the mechanism most people miss entirely. During deep, slow-wave sleep, your brain activates a cleaning system called the glymphatic pathway. Cerebrospinal fluid flows through your brain tissue, flushing out metabolic waste products. Those waste products include amyloid, beta, and tau proteins. If those names sound familiar, it is because they are the same proteins that accumulate in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. Your brain is supposed to clear them out every single night. When you cut your sleep short, that cleaning cycle gets interrupted. The waste stays. It accumulates, night after night, week after week, like a city that stops collecting garbage. At first, you do not notice. Then the streets start to stink. Multiple cohort analyses published in 2025 and 2026 show that adults sleeping under 6 hours most nights demonstrate accelerated white matter hyperintensity growth within 3 years. That means visible damage on brain scans in just 36 months. And it is not just duration that matters. Consistency and timing are equally critical. Your brain operates on a circadian rhythm. Every cell in your body has an internal clock. When you disrupt that clock, you disrupt the repair schedule. Late-night light exposure suppresses melatonin production. Caffeine consumed after midday blocks adenosine receptors, preventing your brain from registering how tired it actually is. Both of these fragment your REM sleep. And REM sleep is where emotional memory processing happens. Without adequate REM sleep, your brain cannot properly process the emotional experiences of the day. Stress accumulates, anxiety amplifies, mood destabilizes, not because you're weak, because the hardware responsible for emotional regulation is being starved of maintenance time. Laboratory work published in 2026 also highlights neuroinflammation as a direct consequence of sleep loss. When you do not sleep enough, your brain activates microglial cells. These are the immune cells of your nervous system. Normally, microglia protect your brain. They clean up damaged cells and fight infections. But when they are chronically activated by sleep deprivation, they start attacking healthy tissue. They shift into a destructive inflammatory state. This chronic low-grade neuroinflammation has been linked to depressive symptoms and cognitive decline. Your brain is not just losing insulation, it is actively inflaming itself. The immune system designed to protect your brain is now contributing to its destruction. And then there's the metabolic cascade. Controlled trials using continuous glucose monitors showed that short nights disrupt glucose handling within 48 hours. Participants showed higher post-meal blood sugar spikes and elevated evening cortisol levels. Cortisol is your stress hormone. When it stays elevated at night, it blocks the release of growth hormone, which is essential for tissue repair. So your brain is simultaneously accumulating damage and losing its ability to fix that damage. A perfect destructive loop. Leptin and ghrelin, the hormones that control hunger and fullness, also shift when you are sleep deprived. Leptin drops. Ghrelin rises. Your brain starts craving high-calorie, ultra-processed foods, not because you lack discipline, but because your hormones have been hijacked. This is why people who sleep less tend to weigh more. It is not a willpower problem. It is a hormonal malfunction triggered by sleep deprivation. Your brain is literally sending you the wrong hunger signals because it did not get enough time to calibrate overnight. The cardiovascular damage compounds the picture. Umbrella reviews analyzing data from over 1.6 million participants found that short sleepers face significantly elevated risks of hypertension, stroke, and coronary heart disease. Your blood pressure is supposed to drop by 10 to 20% while you sleep. This is called nocturnal dipping. When you cut sleep short, that dip does not happen. Your cardiovascular system never gets its nightly rest. Your arteries stiffen. Your heart works harder every hour of every day, and here's where the body betrayal becomes complete. All of these systems are interconnected. Brain inflammation drives cortisol. Cortisol drives blood sugar instability. Blood sugar instability drives weight gain. Weight gain drives cardiovascular stress, and cardiovascular stress drives more inflammation. It is a cascade. One domino falls and every system downstream starts to fail. Not overnight, not dramatically, gradually, quietly. In a way that makes you blame everything except the real cause. The 5 or 6 hours of sleep you have normalized, the immune system takes its own separate hit. Natural killer cells, the frontline defenders against viruses and cancer cells, drop significantly after just one night of shortened sleep. One night, not a week, not a month, one single night. Your body produces cytokines during sleep. These are signaling proteins that help coordinate your immune response. Chronic sleep deprivation suppresses cytokine production, leaving you more vulnerable to infections and potentially reducing your body's ability to detect abnormal cell growth. Researchers now describe sleep deprivation as an acquired risk factor for the 21st century. That language is deliberate. Acquired means it is not genetic. Risk factor means it increases your probability of disease, and 21st century means it is getting worse, not better. The American Heart Association added sleep duration to its cardiovascular health metrics in 2022. It was elevated alongside diet, exercise, blood pressure, cholesterol, blood sugar, and smoking status. Sleep is now officially recognized as a vital sign of heart health. But here is the data point that should shake you. Staying awake for 17 to 19 consecutive hours produces cognitive and motor impairment, equivalent to a blood alcohol concentration of 0.05%. That is legally impaired in most countries. After 24 hours without sleep, your impairment matches a blood alcohol level of 0.10%. That exceeds the legal intoxication threshold in the United States. You would not drive drunk, but you will drive sleep-deprived, and your brain cannot tell the difference. And unlike alcohol, where you know you have been drinking, sleep deprivation removes your ability to assess your own impairment. You feel fine, you believe you're functioning, but your reaction times, your judgment, and your decision-making have all degraded significantly. This is why drowsy driving kills thousands of people every year. This is why medical errors spike during overnight shifts. This is why industrial accidents cluster around the early morning hours. Sleep-deprived brains are making life and death decisions while functionally intoxicated. Now let me connect this back to the brain structure. Every night you miss adequate sleep, your oligodendrocytes fall behind on myelin production. Every night they fall behind, the signals in your brain travel a little slower. Slower signals mean slower processing. Slower processing means more errors. More errors mean worse decisions. Worse decisions compound into worse outcomes across every area of your life: career, relationships, health, financial judgment. All of it degrades together. And the cruelest part of this mechanism is that your brain adapts to the impairment, not by fixing it, but by lowering your baseline. You stop noticing how much you have lost because the decline happens so gradually that your current state feels normal. You're not functioning fine on 5 hours. You're functioning at a diminished capacity that your compromised brain has accepted as its new normal. The research is unambiguous on this point. Self-reported sleep sufficiency does not correlate with actual cognitive performance. People who claim they need less sleep consistently score lower on objective cognitive tests than people who sleep 7 to 8 hours. They just do not know it, because the part of the brain responsible for self-assessment is one of the first areas to degrade. So the question is not whether sleep deprivation damages your brain. That has been answered. The question is, how much damage have you already accumulated, and what are you going to do about it starting tonight? Let me walk you through the clinical evidence, because this is not one study making a bold claim. This is a convergence of research from multiple countries using multiple methods, all pointing to the same conclusion. The 2026 PNAS study combined human neuroimaging with controlled animal experiments. 185 healthy volunteers had their brains scanned and their sleep quality assessed using the Pittsburgh Sleep Quality Index. The results confirmed what earlier smaller studies had suggested. Poor sleep quality correlated with reduced white matter integrity across multiple brain regions. The worse you sleep, the more your brain's structural wiring deteriorates. The animal experiments went further. Rats deprived of sleep for 10 days showed measurably thinner myelin sheaths around their axons. The nerve fibers themselves did not shrink, but the insulation protecting them had physically degraded. This distinction is critical. The neurons are still there, the wires still exist, but without proper insulation, they cannot transmit signals efficiently. It is the difference between a high-speed internet connection and a dial-up modem from 1999. Separate longitudinal research tracking adults over 3 years found that those sleeping under 6 hours showed accelerated growth of white matter hyperintensities. These are bright spots on brain scans that indicate structural damage. White matter hyperintensities are associated with increased risk of stroke, cognitive decline, and dementia. They are common in aging brains, but the rate at which they appear accelerates dramatically in people who chronically undersleep. Data from the Framingham Heart Study and a 2024 meta-analysis of 9 cohorts revealed that adults in the highest ultra-processed food consumption group had 25 to 35% excess dementia risk. But sleep deprivation showed comparable, if not larger, effect sizes. The RAIN study, a longitudinal dataset tracking participants from birth linked poor sleep patterns to reduced hippocampal volume. The hippocampus is your memory center. Shrink it, and your ability to form and retrieve memories declines measurably. And here is something most people would never expect. A 2023 Umbrella review found a U-shaped relationship between sleep duration and mortality. Sleeping too little increases your risk of dying early, but so does sleeping too much. The sweet spot is 7 to 8 hours for most adults. Below 7, your cardiovascular, metabolic, and neurological risks climb sharply. Above 9, there are associations with depression and other underlying health conditions. But here is the inversion that changes everything. The damage is not permanent, at least not all of it. The same researchers who documented myelin thinning found evidence that recovery sleep can partially reverse the degradation. Your brain wants to repair itself. You just have to let it. This is the finding that separates this research from a hopeless diagnosis. Oligodendrocytes can ramp up myelin production when sleep is restored. The glymphatic system can clear accumulated waste when given enough time. The brain has a built-in recovery protocol, but there is a catch. The recovery is not instant, and it is not complete after one good night. Studies suggest it takes weeks of consistent, adequate sleep to see measurable improvements in white matter integrity. You cannot binge sleep on the weekend and call it fixed. One night of recovery sleep restores some immune function. Natural killer cell counts bounce back relatively quickly, but the structural brain changes require sustained behavioral change, 7 to 8 hours per night consistently over weeks and months. The inflammatory markers also take time to normalize. Microglial activation does not switch off overnight. Cortisol patterns need weeks of consistent sleep-wake timing to recalibrate. Your circadian rhythm is not a light switch. It is a slowly turning dial. Clinical trials have also shown that cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia, known as CBTI, is more effective than sleeping pills for long-term sleep improvement. It works by restructuring the habits and thought patterns that prevent quality sleep. Digital CBTI programs are now expanding access in multiple countries. They are evidence-based. They do not require medication, and they address the root behavioral causes of poor sleep rather than masking symptoms with pharmaceuticals. The metabolic data is equally encouraging. When sleep-deprived participants in controlled studies returned to 7 to 8 hours, their glucose handling normalized. Post-meal blood sugar spikes decreased. Cortisol patterns returned to baseline. Leptin and ghrelin rebalanced. Weight management becomes easier, not because of willpower, but because the hormonal environment shifts back toward normal. Your brain stops sending false hunger signals. Your body stops craving emergency calories. The system self-corrects when sleep is restored. Blood pressure responds too. Nocturnal dipping returns when sleep duration and quality improve. The cardiovascular system finally gets its nightly maintenance window. Arterial stiffness metrics improve. Resting heart rate decreases. So the evidence tells us two things simultaneously. Sleep deprivation causes measurable physical damage to your brain and body, and restoring adequate sleep can reverse much of that damage if you act before the accumulation crosses certain thresholds. The key phrase is if you act, because there appears to be a point of no return for some types of damage. White matter hyperintensities that have progressed significantly may not fully resolve. Cardiovascular remodeling from years of elevated blood pressure may persist. The sooner you start treating sleep as a non-negotiable biological requirement rather than a luxury you earn after productivity, the more of this damage you can prevent and reverse. The science is not ambiguous. The window is now. So what does the science actually recommend you do starting tonight? Not generic wellness advice, not sleep hygiene platitudes, the specific evidence-based protocols that have been shown to protect and restore your brain. First, anchor your wake time. Your circadian rhythm is set primarily by when you wake up, not when you go to sleep. Pick a wake time and hold it within 30 minutes every single day, including weekends. This is the single most impactful change you can make. Varying your wake time by 2 or more hours on weekends creates what researchers call social jet lag. Your brain experiences it the same way it would experience flying across time zones. You are jet lagging yourself every Monday morning. Second, get bright light exposure within 30 minutes of waking. Natural sunlight is ideal even on cloudy days. This light signal tells your suprachiasmatic nucleus, the master clock in your brain, to start the 24-hour countdown to melatonin release. Without that morning light signal, your melatonin release shifts later. You cannot fall asleep on time. You cut into your sleep window, and the damage cycle restarts. Morning light is not a wellness trend. It is a circadian anchor backed by decades of chronobiology research. Third, set a hard caffeine cutoff. Caffeine has a half-life of 5 to 6 hours. That means if you drink coffee at 2 in the afternoon, half of that caffeine is still circulating in your brain at 8 p.m. It blocks adenosine receptors, preventing your brain from registering sleepiness. You may fall asleep with caffeine in your system, but your sleep architecture will be disrupted. Deep, slow wave sleep, the phase where your glymphatic system clears waste and your oligodendrocytes repair myelin gets suppressed. You sleep, but your brain does not recover. Fourth, create a temperature drop. Your core body temperature needs to decrease by about 1 to 2 degrees for sleep onset to occur. A cool bedroom around 65 to 68 degrees Fahrenheit or 18 to 20 degrees Celsius facilitates this natural thermoregulation process. A warm shower or bath 60 to 90 minutes before bed paradoxically helps. It draws blood to your skin surface, which accelerates core temperature cooling after you get out. This is not comfort advice. This is vasodilation physiology being used to trigger your body's sleep switch. Fifth, eliminate screens in the final hour before bed. Blue light from phones, tablets, and monitors suppresses melatonin production by up to 50%. Your brain interprets that light as daytime signaling. It delays your sleep onset and reduces your total REM sleep. If you must use a device, use warm, toned night mode settings and keep brightness at minimum. But honestly, the most effective protocol is a physical book or a conversation or anything that does not involve a backlit screen pointing directly at your retinas. Sixth, standardize your pre-sleep routine. Your brain is a pattern recognition machine. When you repeat the same sequence of behaviors before bed every night, your brain learns to associate those behaviors with the onset of sleep. This is classical conditioning applied to neuroscience. It does not matter what the routine is: stretching, reading, journaling, breathing exercises. What matters is that it is the same sequence performed at the same time in the same order. Consistency trains your brain to anticipate sleep and begin the biochemical preparation automatically. Seventh, address the hidden disruptors. Alcohol is the most misunderstood sleep saboteur. It may help you fall asleep faster, but it fragments your sleep architecture. It suppresses REM sleep in the first half of the night and causes rebound wakefulness in the second half. Even moderate alcohol consumption within 3 hours of bedtime measurably degrades sleep quality. You may sleep for 8 hours and wake up feeling unrested. That is because the restorative phases of your sleep cycle were disrupted even though you remained unconscious. Eighth, if you snore loudly or wake up gasping, talk to your doctor about a sleep study. Obstructive sleep apnea affects an estimated 1 billion people worldwide, and most of them are undiagnosed. It causes repeated oxygen drops throughout the night, accelerating every form of brain damage we have discussed. Ninth, do not lie in bed awake for more than 20 minutes. If you cannot fall asleep, get up and do something calming in dim light until you feel drowsy, then return to bed. Lying awake trains your brain to associate your bed with wakefulness, which worsens insomnia over time. This is a core principle of cognitive behavioral therapy for insomnia. Your bed should be associated exclusively with sleep, not with worry, not with planning, not with scrolling. Stimulus control is one of the most evidence-based interventions for chronic sleep difficulty. 10th, track your sleep, but do not obsess over it. Wearable devices can give you useful trends over weeks and months, but checking your sleep score every morning and stressing about a bad night creates anxiety that itself disrupts sleep. Use the data as a long-term feedback tool. Look at weekly averages, not daily numbers. If your average sleep duration is consistently below 7 hours, or your deep sleep percentage is trending downward, those are signals to adjust your habits, not reasons to panic. Now, here's the protocol most people resist. You may need to sacrifice something to gain sleep. That might mean an hour less of television, an hour less of social media, an hour less of work. Something has to give. But consider what you're trading for that hour. You're trading entertainment or productivity for brain preservation, for immune function, for cardiovascular protection, for emotional stability, for cognitive sharpness, for literally years of healthy life, according to the mortality data. That 1 hour is the highest return investment you will ever make in your own health. No supplement can replicate what happens during deep sleep. No amount of exercise can compensate for chronic sleep deprivation. Sleep is not optional. Sleep is the operating system your body runs on. If you are learning something from this video that you did not know before, subscribe to this channel because I break down the science behind how your body actually works in ways that can genuinely change your health trajectory. Hit subscribe now so you do not miss what comes next. I want to leave you with a warning that I do not think enough doctors are giving their patients. Sleep deprivation is cumulative. The damage does not reset with one good night. It builds up silently over months and years. You may feel functional today. You may perform adequately at work. You may not have any obvious symptoms, but inside your skull, your myelin is thinning. Your waste clearance system is falling behind. Your inflammatory markers are quietly climbing. The 2026 research is clear. Even a 1-hour nightly deficit sustained over time compounds into measurable structural brain changes. Not in decades, in years. 3 years was enough to see accelerated white matter degradation on brain scans. And the tragic irony is that the people who need this message most are the least likely to hear it because they are too busy, too productive, too convinced that they are the exception, too sleep-deprived to recognize how impaired their judgment has already become. If you are sleeping less than 7 hours most nights, you're not performing at your peak, no matter how strong you feel. The data is unequivocal. You're operating on borrowed neurological capital, and the interest rate is your brain's structural integrity. This is a YMYL topic. Your health decisions have real consequences. Nothing in this video replaces professional medical advice. If you suspect you have a sleep disorder or are experiencing cognitive decline, please consult a qualified healthcare provider. Your brain is worth protecting. The good news is that your brain wants to heal. Oligodendrocytes are standing by, ready to rebuild your myelin the moment you give them consistent, adequate sleep. The glymphatic system is ready to flush the waste. Your circadian rhythm is ready to recalibrate, but you have to make the decision. Not tomorrow, not next week, tonight. Set a wake time, dim the lights, put the phone down, give your brain the maintenance window it has been begging for. Every night you choose sleep, you are choosing to protect your memory, your mood, your heart, your immune system, your cognitive longevity. Every night you skip it, you are choosing to let all of those systems degrade by one more increment. The science has spoken. Sleep is not a luxury for the lazy. It is the most powerful neuroprotective behavior available to every single human being on this planet, free of charge. No prescription required, just 7 to 8 hours of darkness and stillness. Tell me in the comments which habit is stealing the most sleep from your life. Is it your phone? Is it work? Is it stress? Let me know because I read every single comment and your answer might become the basis of a future video. This is your brain. This is your one chance to protect it. Do not waste another night. I will see you in the next one.